Ever wondered why Keefe D, the man linked to Tupac's murder, is trembling behind prison bars? Since being arrested for the murder of the black icon Tupac Shakur, sleep is the last thing Keefe D is going to lose in prison. It's hard enough for a normal criminal to survive prison, but for someone with a target on his back, it will be hell. In this video, a gang leader exposes why Keefe D is scared in prison. Keefe D targeted in prison. In a shocking turn of events, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a former gang leader, has been arrested and is now facing charges in connection with the murder of iconic rapper Tupac Shakur. But this arrest has not only brought hope for justice, it has also raised concerns about Keefe D's safety in prison. Being a high-profile figure, Keefe D may become a target for other inmates who want to make a name for themselves. The dangers of prison life are well known, and inmates with notoriety often face threats and violence from others seeking to gain respect or establish dominance. Keefe D will need to be cautious and vigilant to ensure his own safety behind bars. Keefe D is the man that has ended the mystery surrounding the murder of the famed black rapper Tupac Shakur. It all began with the intense rivalry between two notorious gangs, the Southside Compton Crips and the Mob Piru Bloods. These rivalries were fueled by a violent history of gang warfare, with each side seeking to assert their dominance and protect their territories. Tupac, a prominent figure in the rap industry, found himself caught in the crossfire of this deadly feud. On the night of September 7, 1996, after attending a boxing match in Las Vegas, Tupac was brutally shot multiple times in a drive-by shooting. He was rushed to the hospital, but tragically succumbed to his injuries 6 days later. The investigation into Tupac's murder has been plagued by a lack of witnesses and cooperation from those involved. However, recent developments have shed new light on the case. Keefe D, a key figure in the Southside Compton Crips, has been identified as a person of interest in the murder. His arrest has reignited interest in the case and raised hopes that justice may finally be served. But the road to justice is not without its challenges. Keefe D's involvement in the murder of Tupac brings with it a host of dangers, both inside and outside of prison. The Southside Compton Crips, known for their ruthless tactics, will be watching closely to see if Keefe D reveals any information that could implicate other members of the gang. This puts Keefe D in a precarious position, as he must navigate the treacherous waters of prison life while also protecting himself from potential retaliation. In the unforgiving world of gangs and violence, alliances are crucial for survival. Keefe D will need to align himself closely with the Southside Compton Crips for protection, but even that may not be enough. Gang rivalries and power struggles within the prison system can be deadly, and Keefe D must remain on guard at all times. While state prisons generally offer a safer environment compared to federal prisons, they are not without their own risks. Inmates convicted of less violent crimes such as drug dealing or money laundering can still pose a threat. Gang violence is a constant presence, and conflicts can erupt at any moment. The constant threats and targeted attacks on Keefe D's life have created a tense and dangerous environment within the prison walls. Fellow inmates, fueled by a desire for revenge or a twisted sense of justice, have made it their mission to make Keefe D pay for his alleged crimes. The violence and brutality that Keefe D faces on a daily basis are unimaginable to most, but for him, it has become a grim reality. Survival in prison is a constant battle, and Keefe D has had to adapt to the harsh realities of life behind bars. He has had to rely on his instincts and street smarts to navigate the treacherous waters of the prison system. Every day is a struggle to stay alive and avoid becoming another statistic in the violent world of gang warfare. Keefe D's involvement in the murder of Tupac Shakur has undoubtedly left a trail of anger and grief among the rapper's loyal fans. Within the prison walls, there are inmates who may seek to take matters into their own hands and exact revenge on Keefe D. The emotional intensity surrounding Tupac's death and the desire for justice can fuel a dangerous desire for retribution. Keefe D must be constantly aware of the potential for retaliation, as his notoriety makes him a prime target for those seeking to avenge Tupac's untimely demise. According to Reggie Wright Jr., a former employee of Suge Knight's Thaw Row Records and son of a gang enforcer at the Los Angeles Sheriff Department's Operation Safe Street unit in Compton, Keefe D has already been subjected to multiple violent assaults while awaiting trial. The situation is far from over, as the potential for more violence looms large. In a recent interview, Reggie Wright Jr. revealed the distressing news about Keefe D's time in jail. Heard he done got whooped on about 3 times already in there, and I got that confirmed from a very, very good source, he said. But nothing major. Just, kicked, stomped, hit. Nothing like he gonna get when those dudes in the pen find out how he was saying that they saw. Yeah, that audio's still out there. You better call Vlad and try to get it pulled down, he said. The reason behind these attacks lies in the audacious claims Keefe D made about his fellow inmates. In an audio recording that is still circulating, Keefe D can be heard referring referring to them as soft. This derogatory statement has not gone unnoticed, and the inmates are eager to make KEEFE D pay for his disrespect. The severity of the attacks he has already endured pales in comparison to what awaits him once the inmates discover his derogatory remarks. The danger KEEFE D faces in prison is not limited to physical violence. The prison environment is rife with tension and rivalries, especially when it comes to high-profile cases like the murder of Tupac Shakur. KEEFE D's self-confession has made him a target for those seeking justice for Tupac. The inmates, many of whom were fans of the iconic rapper, view KEEFE D as the embodiment of their anger and desire for retribution. Mob James, who knew KEEFE from their Los Angeles neighborhood wars, is adamant that the 60-year-old has a problem, both waiting for him in the trial and should he be convicted. Beyond the physical threats, KEEFE D also faces psychological torment within the prison system. The isolation, constant surveillance, and lack of privacy can take a toll on one's mental well-being. For KEEFE D, the weight of his alleged involvement in the murder of a music icon adds an additional layer of psychological stress. The constant fear, anxiety, and paranoia that accompany his notoriety can have a profound impact on his mental health. KEEFE D's high-profile status as a suspect in the murder of Tupac Shakur places an immense amount of pressure on him. The scrutiny from both fellow inmates and prison staff can be overwhelming. The constant attention and the knowledge that his every move is being watched can create a sense of paranoia and anxiety. KEEFE D must constantly be on guard, knowing that any misstep or perceived weakness could make him an even bigger target for violence. Isolation that comes with being a notorious inmate can be incredibly challenging for KEEFE D. The lack of social interaction and the constant feeling of being an outsider can take a toll on his mental well-being. The knowledge that he is seen as a pariah by many within the prison community can lead to feelings of loneliness and despair. KEEFE D must find ways to cope with the psychological toll of his notoriety in order to survive. The prison authorities are well aware of the threats KEEFE D faces. As a result, they have taken measures to ensure his safety. KEEFE D will be placed in protective custody, away from the general prison population. This is a necessary step to prevent further attacks and to minimize the risk to his life. However, even in protective custody, the constant fear and tension will undoubtedly take a toll on KEEFE D's mental and emotional well-being. The attacks on KEEFE D highlight the volatile nature of prison life and the potential consequences of his self-confession. The prison system, while designed to rehabilitate and protect, can also be a breeding ground for violence and revenge. KEEFE D's actions have made him a marked man, and he will have to navigate this treacherous environment for the foreseeable future. Southside Compton Crips versus Mob Peru Bloods. The rivalry between the Southside Compton Crips and Mob Peru Bloods runs deep and stretches back further than the tragic death of iconic rapper Tupac Shakur. During the 1970s, Compton was a hotbed of gang activity, with various factions vying for control over the streets. The Kelly Park Compton Crips and Neighborhood Compton Crips dominated most of the territory, leaving the area west of Long Beach Boulevard unclaimed. It was in this vacuum that the Southside Compton Crips emerged, staking their claim to the streets and establishing their presence. The crack epidemic of the 1980s and 1990s further fueled the rise of the Southside Compton Crips. They took advantage of the chaos and operated numerous drug houses throughout their territory, solidifying their control and influence. Their reputation for violence and ruthless tactics grew, making them one of the most feared and respected gangs in Compton. While the Southside Compton Crips made their mark on the streets of Compton, their rivals, the Mob Peru Bloods, have their own storied history that intertwines with the larger Bloods Alliance. The roots of the Bloods Alliance can be traced back to the late 1960s and early 1970s when a gang called the Peru Street Boys was formed by Sylvester Scott and Vincent Owens. Initially associated with the Crips, the Peru Street Boys later had a falling out, leading to their separation from the Crips. Some sources claim that the Peru Street Boys were victimized by the Crips, while others dispute any alliance altogether. Regardless, by 1972, the Peru Street Boys formed an alliance with other smaller street gangs, including the Brims, Bishops, and Denver Lanes, who also opposed the Crips. This alliance became known as the Bloods, with members referring to each other as Blood. Within the Bloods Alliance, various sets emerged, including the Mob Peru Bloods. According to Reggie Wright Jr., the Mob Peru and Lueders Park Peru were once part of the same gang until they split apart. The Mob Peru Bloods established their presence in East Compton and South Linwood, becoming a force to be reckoned with. The Mob Peru Bloods gained further prominence through their association with Death Row Records, a record label co-founded by Suge Knight. Knight, himself a former gang member, became affiliated with the Mob Peru set and hired many of its members within Death Row Records. This affiliation extended to notable figures within the gang, including Wardell Poochie Faust, who was implicated in the murder of the notorious B.I.G. Faust met a tragic end on July 24, 2003, when he was shot dead. Trayvon Trey Lane, yet another Mob Piru Bloods member, found himself at the center of the infamous altercation at the Lakewood Mall, which ultimately led to the shooting of Tupac Shakur. Lane was attacked by a group of Crips, including Orlando Anderson, and his gold Death Row Records chain was stolen. In the aftermath of the incident, Lane, along with several Death Row members, including Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur, sought revenge. This encounter set the stage for the fateful events that unfolded on September 7, 1996, in Las Vegas. Shakur, Knight, and several associates of Death Row Records, including Lane, traveled to the city to attend a boxing match. While at the MGM Grand Hotel, Lane spotted Anderson igniting a confrontation. Shakur, known for his affiliation with the Mob Piru Bloods, intervened and asked Anderson if he was from the South, referring to the Southside Compton Crips. The tension escalated, and a fight broke out. After the brawl, Tupac, Knight, and their entourage left the area, but tensions were far from over. Later that night, they attended an after-party at Club 662, owned by Knight. Unbeknownst to them, Davis was preparing his retaliation for the earlier altercation. He left the club and retrieved a gun from his home, determined to seek revenge. Around 11 p.m., Tupac and Knight were driving in Knight's black BMW near the Las Vegas Strip when they were pulled over by police. The officers cited them for blasting music and not properly displaying the vehicle's license plate. Fortunately, they were released without receiving a ticket after Knight fixed the car's plates. At approximately 11:15 p.m., the BMW stopped at a red light at the intersection of Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, just a block away from the Strip. In a chilling turn of events, a white Cadillac quietly crept up alongside Knight's vehicle. An arm emerged from the back window, brandishing a firearm. Without warning, the shooter unleashed a hail of bullets into the BMW, targeting Tupac. In a matter of seconds, over a dozen rounds were fired, hitting Tupac 4 times, including 2 bullets to his chest. Knight, miraculously, was only grazed by a bullet fragment. The white Cadillac quickly sped away from the scene, leaving Tupac fighting for his life. Police and paramedics arrived at the scene around 11:20 p.m. Tupac was rushed to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada Hospital, where he underwent multiple surgeries. Despite the efforts of medical professionals, Tupac succumbed to his injuries on September 13, 1996, dying of cardiac arrest at the young age of 25. The shocking murder of Tupac Shakur ignited a violent gang war between the Bloods and Crips in Compton. Retaliatory shootings ensued, resulting in multiple fatalities and injuries. Law enforcement responded with raids on known gang members' houses, including Anderson's, but he was ultimately released due to insufficient evidence linking him directly to Shakur's murder. According to Keefe D's perspective, he was in the passenger seat of a white Cadillac with Terrence Bubble Up Brown driving, while Orlando Baby Lane Anderson and DeAndre Freaky Smith were in the back seat. He claimed that the fatal shots were fired from the back seat of his white Cadillac, implicating individuals within his circle.
You said the shots came from the back. Big Dre, Orlando. Who shot Tupac?
To keep it for the code of the streets. It just came from the backseat, bro.
He also admitted to arming the shooter, organizing the pursuit, and then destroying evidence. Anderson, who denied his involvement in Shakur's shooting, died 2 years later in an unrelated gang shootout. The Southside Compton Crips' involvement in the shooting of Tupac Shakur forever cemented their place in gang lore. Their actions not only claimed the life of a beloved artist, but also fueled the flames of an already volatile gang landscape. The repercussions of that fateful night continue to reverberate through the streets of Compton. The arrest and trial of Keefe D.
Hey, Keefe, Metro Police, come over here. Hey, Metro Police, come over here, all right? Thanks, buddy. Come on over here. Appreciate your cooperation, okay? I'm gonna stand right here in front of the car. Yep, bud. Yep, we're going to put it down. I know, hang on. Put that down for a second, all right?
On a fateful day, in the early hours of Friday morning, Keefe D was taken into custody while on a routine walk near his home on the outskirts of Las Vegas. The arrest came as a surprise to many, as the case had remained unsolved for nearly 3 decades. The arrest was the result of relentless efforts by law enforcement officials who were determined to bring justice to the victims and their families. Keefe D, now 60 years old, has long been known to investigators as one of the 4 suspects identified early in the investigation. While he is not believed to be the accused gunman, authorities have described him as the ringleader of the group involved in the crime. His arrest has raised hopes that the truth behind Tupac Shakur's tragic death will finally be revealed. The arrest of Keefe D has been a turning point in the investigation, breathing new life into a case that had gone cold for years. It was his own public comments, made in interviews, and in his 2019 tell-all memoir, Compton Street Legend, that reignited interest in the case and led to the revival of the investigation. Keefe D's willingness to speak openly about his involvement in the crime provided law enforcement with the crucial evidence they needed to move forward. The arrest of Keefe D has not only brought hope for justice, but has also shed light on the complex web of rivalries and tensions that defined the hip-hop scene during the mid-1990s. The investigation has revealed a deep and escalating rift between Shakur's music label, Death Row Records, and Bad Boy Records, which had ties to Keefe D and represented Shakur's rap rival, Biggie Smalls. This rivalry, often referred to as the West Coast-East Coast feud, played a significant role in the events leading up to Shakur's untimely demise. Keefe D has been charged with murder in connection with the 1996 killing of rapper Tupac Shakur. While not the accused gunman, Davis has been identified as a ringleader of the group involved in the crime. His arrest has brought hope for justice after years of silence surrounding the case. The investigation has shed light on the deep-seated rivalry between Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records, which played a significant role in the events leading up to Shakur's death. The investigation of Keefe D has relied on a combination of witness testimonies, forensic evidence, and extensive background research to piece together the events that transpired on that tragic night. Former associates of Keefe D, friends of Tupac Shakur, and retired police officers involved in the case early on have provided crucial insights into the circumstances surrounding the murder. The pursuit of justice has been further complicated by the passage of time, which has eroded some of the physical evidence and made it challenging to gather new leads. However, advancements in forensic technology and the dedication of law enforcement officials have allowed for the re-examination of existing evidence and the identification of potential new leads. The investigation has also faced its fair share of challenges, including witness intimidation and the reluctance of some individuals to come forward with crucial information. Overcoming these obstacles has required the collaboration of multiple law enforcement agencies, the use of specialized investigative techniques, and the implementation of witness protection programs to ensure the safety of those willing to provide valuable testimony. Suge Knight is one of the survivors of that night, but when asked if he would testify against Keefe D, he said, "I'm not going to get on the stand and testify. 1000% I wouldn't go." He continued on to say, "And whatever the circumstances, if he did have involvement or if he didn't have involvement in anything, I wouldn't wish someone going to prison on my worst enemy. As someone who is experiencing firsthand, he knows what awaits Keefe D should he be found guilty and sentenced." Recently, new details have emerged about Keefe D's health issues during his time in custody. According to court documents filed by his lawyers, Davis has been experiencing a significant decline in his health. He has not been receiving his bi-monthly oncologist checkups, and his heart health has deteriorated. In an effort to control his condition, he has been put back on a group of medications. However, due to the limitations of being in jail, he is unable to maintain proper health. His diet consists of heavily processed meals full of sodium, which barely pass as food. These conditions have raised concerns about his well-being and have prompted his lawyers to request his release from jail. In addition to his health issues, Davis's lawyers have also raised concerns about the evidence presented against him during the investigation. They argue that prosecutors relied heavily on hearsay and speculative testimony during grand jury proceedings. They also question the credibility of certain pieces of evidence, such as a book Davis allegedly helped write called Compton Street Legend. The lawyers claim that prosecutors failed to identify which parts of the book came from Davis, casting doubt on its relevance to the case. Furthermore, they argue that interviews with Davis posted on YouTube were done for entertainment purposes and to make money, and the truthfulness of their content was never verified. Despite these challenges, Davis's lawyers maintain his innocence and argue that he should be released on house arrest with electronic monitoring pending trial. They emphasize that Davis has moved on from his old lifestyle and is now a well-regarded member of the community in Henderson, a suburb of Las Vegas, where he has lived for the past 10 years. As the trial date approaches, the world eagerly awaits the shocking details that will be revealed in the courtroom. If convicted, Davis could potentially be facing life in prison. Keefe D was granted bail at a hearing in Las Vegas for a sum of $750,000, with the additional requirement of home monitoring. However, the district attorney has stated that a source hearing will be held to determine the legitimacy of the funds provided for bail. This twist in the case has raised questions about the origins of the money and adds another layer of complexity to the ongoing investigation. Keefe D's lawyer, Robert Arroyo, expressed hope that his client would be able to raise enough money through a bail bond company to afford the fee. It has been reported that Keefe's family may sell or leverage their Vegas home to cover the likely $120,000 deposit for a bail bondsman. Photos obtained exclusively by the U.S. Sun show Keefe's son, Dwayne Davis Jr., smiling at his phone outside his home shortly after his father was granted granted bail. This development has brought a sense of relief to Keefe's family, who are eager to have him back home as soon as possible. However, the district attorney has emphasized that the funds provided for bail must be proven to be from legitimate sources. A source hearing will be held to examine the financial matters and ensure that the money is not derived from criminal or illegitimate income sources. This requirement highlights the need for transparency and accountability in the legal process. Despite being granted bail, Keefe D's release is contingent upon the outcome of the source hearing and the enforcement of strict terms of his release. The judge will carefully consider the evidence and information presented regarding the source of the bond. This hearing will play a crucial role in determining whether Keefe D will be allowed to await trial outside of custody. The defense team, led by Robert Arroyo and Charles Cano, has argued that Keefe D is not a danger to the community and should be released on bail. They maintain that Keefe has distanced himself from his past criminal activities and has been out of crime for over a decade. They also assert that the case against Keefe has already been tried on YouTube and that his confessions were made for fame, fortune, and entertainment purposes. The defense team believes that Keefe D's release on bail, with appropriate monitoring, is a reasonable solution while awaiting trial. As the legal proceedings continue, the trial date looms closer. The trial is scheduled to begin in June 3rd. The outcome of this high-profile case will undoubtedly have a significant impact on the legacy of Tupac Shakur and the hip-hop community as a whole. If you want to watch more videos like this, click on the video cards on your screen.